Okay. So this week what we are going to do, we are going to discuss on what you have covered so far in cs111, right? Before we start our session, do you have any queries about any specific topic that you want me to discuss? Yes, Jimson, do you have any questions? Loops? Okay. Which loops are you specifically talking about? For loops, while loops, or do while loops? Okay. So, not to worry. I think as part of this session, I have some discussion on those topics. So when I come to those topics, I'll try to be very clear with you guys, right? Okay. So, okay, I'm going to turn off my webcam here. Right. Okay. So if you see, there's a PowerPoint presentation that I have uploaded here for the review of week 1 to week 7, right? So let's have a look at the review, right? Okay, first slide is basically on the history of computers, virtual machines, probably, right? So you need to actually do a bit of research on that if you have to, in order to, like, just in case if you have any questions, right? So I would recommend that you read the textbook about the history, right? Okay, so next slide is the ethics, right? So ethics. So most organizations, many organizations have their code of conduct or code of ethics, right? So what is ethics? Simply, it's about basically things that you think should be correct, should be actually correct in a sense that your professional conduct, right? For that reasons that we have this what do you call this, ACS, Australian Computer Society. These are ethical codes of ethics, right? Codes of conduct that are placed for us, for not us, for all those people specializing in this computer profession, right? So they need to actually be up to those code of conduct, right? Right. So these are basically the guidelines, the rules that make us follow some of the computer procedures, basic procedures of the computer, right? Okay, so let's see about input and output, right? So we have like standard way of providing input and output, right? So some of the ways you can actually provide input into your computer or for a particular program is through mostly that we use through keyboard, right? So standard input usually means input using a keyboard, right? In another case, standard output would be whatever you are seeing on your screen, right, on your monitor. So what happens is that the computer or the laptop that you are using. So I see Caroline that has joined us. Hello, Caroline. Welcome to our session. Caroline, can you hear me properly? Very good. Caroline, I would need your ID for attendance purpose. Thank you very much. So we were actually discussing on the standard input and output, and as I was explaining how standard input and output work. So as I was saying that we provide our input for into the computers through our keyboard, right? So what the computers do in that time, they take in the particular input, they process it, they process in whatever instructions that we provide, right? In whatever way the instructions that we have provided, they process that, and then according to our specific instructions that we have given, they display, right? They display it onto the screen, right? Of course, monitor is not the only way of output. We have printer, we have so many ways that can actually take that can display the output. But for cs111, the standard output that we prefer is the monitor, right? And what are the escape characters? Escape characters are used for new lines, tabs, and special characters, right? So I would say, yeah. So any questions about the input and output so far? Yes, no, any questions, anyone? Okay, so I'll take it as a no. So now we'll move on to the next slide, right? Okay. So in the next slide we have errors and warnings, right? So all of you have run your dev C++ program? Yes, of course. So, how do you think your dev C++ portrays errors and warnings? Yes, how do you think? Okay, so when we compile a particular piece of code, so what actually happens if there's error, then the compiler will flag the error with an X or underline, right? Failure underline, right? So denoting errors, right? So let's see. So in that case, those are actually errors. Those errors, these right? So those are particularly errors, right? So let's see what this slide actually has to say, right, about errors and warnings. A compiler can give you errors and warnings. Error means that a compiler could not finish the job, right? So if there is a piece error or something is missing from a piece of code, then the compiler will not be able to actually run that piece of code and produce a particular output. So in case what it will do, um it will flag that error, right? Instead of giving you an output, it will flag that error, telling you that there is an error in that situation, right? And then it says error means that there is no executable code. So yes, so again in that case it would mean that the compiler is not able to find something that it can execute to give an output, right? Or it cannot find a proper piece of code, or yeah, or piece of code of a proper context or syntax that can actually be used to provide a specific output, right? So in such cases you will find errors, right? And then it says error means that you have to find and fix the problem. Yes, of course. So of course if there is an error, you will have to actually find an error, find the error, and actually correct it in order for the compiler to run and produce an output of your requirement, right? So unless and until you do not correct that error, you will not be able to run the piece of code, right? So that is what the error would actually mean there, right? So, and all these kinds of in all these situations, we say that this is an error at compile time. So the moment we compile a piece of code, that is the time we actually come to know that yes, there is a particular error. There is some error in the code and we have to correct it. So that is why we say error at compile time. Right? So everybody clear with the errors so far? Okay. Any questions about errors? Okay. What about Jameson? Any question? Okay. Very good. So let us move on to warnings. So warning means that the compiler could finish the job. Right? So I would actually say, so what is warning meaning? It means that when you run a piece of code, the compiler will be able to run that particular code. It will be able to get to a particular output. But warning, it will actually flag a warning stating that there was like if you have not followed up proper procedure of proper structure of providing a coding, then the compiler will flag a warning that yes, there is something that is not up to our standard and you should have a look at it. So even though it's able to find a piece of code that it can execute, the compiler will actually find something or actually explain or tell the programmer that there is something that we do not like that can cause problems in the future, right? And one thing you have to understand about warnings is that even if you do not get an error, or if you do not fix a warning now, your program will execute. But in the long run, if you further, what do you call this, integrate your piece of code it somewhere else or something, there might be errors that can result as just because of this particular warning. Right? So you have to keep in mind that your particular piece of code is error free and free of all warnings, right? Even if you see any warnings, please try and what do you call this, correct or have a look at what that compiler has flagged, right? And then it says warning mean that there is an executable, but it may hang or worse, or it may hang or worse. So as I was saying that there are chances that in the long run your code may not compile or might not execute due to this particular warning that you have not attended to, right? And then it says warning means that you should not look again. Oh, sorry, it says you should look again, see if it is what you want. And so as I was saying, the meaning warning is something that even though your code runs. So we have another student with us. Bhavya, how are you? Bhavi Dora, Yasi, Leslie, or Leslie, sorry. Can you hear us? Okay. Okay. So, Bhavi, I would need your student ID for attendance purpose, please. Thank you very much. So what I was actually saying is about errors and warnings. So when it comes to errors, then your computer or your compiler will not be able to run the piece of code that you want to execute. Right? The reason being is that your compiler has found something that that does not match the structure of compilation, right? So for that reason, it is not able to get a particular output for you. But if you look at warning, it is the other way around. The compiler will flag some warning, some things that it wants the programmer to have a look at, and but at the same time it will provide a output for the programmer. So for that reason we call that error at runtime, because if at runtime we are able to get a particular output, but still we are getting some flags, right? Warning flags. Right. So any questions about errors and warnings at the moment? Anyone? Yeah, okay, very good. So let us move on to the next slide, right? Okay, so we have arithmetic operators. So if you'll see that C++ in C++, we have so many arithmetics that we have come across, right? Like in certain cases, we may have to create a program on adding two values. Then you would actually need to know the addition sign. In another case, you might need to calculate the interest. So for that reasons, you might need to know how to add, multiply, and even divide in some cases. Right? So if you'll see, for multiplication, we use the arithmetic operator is an asterisk. Right? So, and if you see that beside that you have an arithmetic operator, I asterisk b, right? Now, and then we have for division we have I slash. It is a backward slash, I suppose. What do you call this? Backward or forward slash? Okay, so I'm not pretty sure what kind of slash we call it. So you have to understand that for division we use that slash, so I slash b. So it would mean that I is divided by b, right? For addition, simple I plus b, and then for subtraction we have I minus b. So up till now, all the things are simple, but when it comes to finding modulo, then we use percentage, right? So I percentage b. So what would that mean? I percentage b or I modulo b? Anyone? Yes, exactly, Bobby. Is the remainder, is to do with the remainder. So if we say I divided by b, then the remainder that we get out of that, that would be your answer for that question. Right? For example, let's say x here, right? So if I have to say 3 modulo 2, that would be equals to what? We would have, so we have to know how many times 2 will have to go in 3. So how many times 2 goes into 3? It would be 1, right? And then the remainder would be 1. So our answer there would then be this one. Our answer there would be it would be this one. This one will be our answer, right? So in that case, right, so that would be our answer 1, right? So let us move on to the next slide, right? Okay, the if statement. Okay. The if statement. Right. So what can you say from the if statement here? So if you see, the template for the if statement is very, very clear, right? So it's like if statement. When do we use if statement? if statements are used when you are like making decisions between two things. Let's say, for example, you have a choice, right? For let's say, so for example, if you go to town, right, then you will eat ice cream, right? If you go to town, then you will eat ice cream. Else, right, if you don't go, right, okay, if you go to town, you will eat ice cream, right? Else, you will sleep at home, right? So if you see, so you got two options there. Either you can go to town, right, or you can stay home. So if you choose to go to town, then what will you do in town, right? So if you choose to go to town, then you will eat ice cream there, right? Else, if you choose to stay home, then you can say that you will sleep, right? Can you actually make relate to how the if and else structure is linked to what I'm actually explaining? Yes. Okay. So I hope that I am still clear. Okay, good. So what I was actually saying is that everybody has heard the scenario that I just explained. Yes. So are you guys able to actually relate to the if and else structure? Right. So yes. So that's what I'm actually saying. So if you are able to picture that, let us actually try and write that if and else structure, right? So I will write it here, right? So I was saying you got two choices, right? If you have to go to town, then you will eat ice cream. Otherwise, you will stay home and sleep, right? So if, let's say, go to town. So if you will go to town, then what will you do? You can say yes. So you will, if you go to town, you will eat ice cream, right? Right? Okay. Sorry about that. So if you go to town, then you will eat ice cream. Okay. So you will have there, and then if you choose to, so if you don't go to town, then obviously you will stay home. So for that reason we have else, and for that reason we are not providing any condition for it, because if you if you don't choose to go to town, then obviously you will choose the other option, right? So you can actually say else, what do? You will stay home and sleep. So that is how we are going to place our if and else structure, right? So you got two choices. So the first, so if you have two choices, right, then we provide the condition for the first one. So if that condition is met, then you go ahead with its execution, right? In this case, the execution is eat ice cream, right? So obviously, if that condition is not met, then obviously you will be meeting the second condition, right? So for that reason, we are automatically saying else stay home and sleep instead of saying or providing a condition there for else, right? So all of you are able to understand why we are not having a condition for else. is right. So let's say we have three choices, right? For example, we have three choices, right? So if you go to town, you will eat ice cream, right? Okay. If you go to farm, right? If you go to farm, right? If you go to your farm, then you will walk in the field, right? If you stay home, then you will sleep. So, are you able to understand the new scenario that I've actually created? So if we have, let's say, so if we have three conditions, right? So if you go to town, then you will eat ice cream. That is fine, right? So we are left with two other conditions that need to be met, right? So we need to choose. So else, if so for this reason, since we are having more than two. And so in this case, since we are having more than two cases or more than three cases, so I would actually say, if to turn ice cream, right? And then else if go to farm, what will you do if you go to your farm? You will walk in the farm, right? So else, what will you do? Else stay home and sleep. So are you able to, so if you see, look at this example, this is very much explaining when you are providing, when you should be providing a condition and when you should not be providing a condition. Like if you are left with, let's say, only one condition, right, then you obviously don't need to write that condition. But like if you look at this in the second line, if you look at the second line, it says there, else if you go to farm. In that, at that line, we still have two choices to, or one choice to make between staying home or going to farm. Right? So for that reason, we have to specify the argument condition there. So if that one goes to farm, then work on the farm, else stay home. Right? So that is how if and else structures basically work. And if you see the example here, or basically it's telling you the structure of how you should be having your if and else structure, right? So now we are going to move on to the while statement, right? The while statement. So how many of you are having problems with your while statement? Okay. Okay. So if you will have to understand that a while statement. So Bobby, are you still confused with if statement or the while statement? Oh, okay. Okay. So let's have a look at the while statement, right? Now, let's say, so everybody has a clear idea of how how loops are supposed to run, or what loops are? Yes, no? Everybody has a clear idea of what loops? Don't talk, it's like I'm talking generally here. How they are supposed to work. No, yes, anyone? Not exactly, Caroline. What I was actually looking for is that loops, how loops work is like they execute the same piece of code repeatedly, right? For a while, right? For some time, keep on executing the piece of code, right? Until there is something that is going to stop the loop, right? So that is how loops work. Right? There is the compiler that keeps on running a piece of code again and again and again. Right? Piece of code again and again and again. It will keep on until a particular condition is met. So if a condition is met, that particular loop is stopped. And the compiler will come out of that loop and move on to other parts of the code. Right? For example, let's say your age, right? Example, right? So as I was saying, for example, let's say while. So let's see how while loops can. Okay. So let's say I am running a piece of code, right? That takes in the age, right? That increments your age, right? Till you reach 30, right? Till you reach 30. So what will you do? The program is going to increment your age till you reach 30. The moment you reach 30, the increment process will stop. Right? So everybody had the what do you call this? What I just said about the scenario. Right? So let us see. So I create a particular variable. Let's say int age is equals to, let's say, 20. Right? So that, let's say, that is your original age, right? Now I will write a while loop for that. So while, right, your age. So till when do you want your age to increment? Till you reach 30, right? If you are 31, do you want your age to increment? No. So we will have a condition as such. While your age is less than 30, right? While your age is less than 30, then you want the program to execute this, right? So you would want to actually increment your age. So I would say age plus plus in that case, right? So okay, let's see. Right, so it's going to say age plus plus. So what it's going to do now is that, so everybody able to understand what I'm actually saying here? Yes, thank you, Jimson. What about Caroline and Ravi? Yes, Caroline, you with us? Yes. So you guys are able to. What about Walter? Yes. You guys are with me? Okay. So if you see, this is a very good example. So you want your age to increment till you reach 30. Right? So it's going to check. Right? So if your compiler is going to run, right? If the compiler is going to run, so how is it going to run? This is going to check. Right? Is the compiler is going to check, okay, your age is 20 now, so it will enter the while loop, right? So while age is less than 30, so it will check, is your age less than 30? Yes, it is less than 30, right? Okay, and then, okay, let me say I create another variable, let's say in counter is equals to 0, right? And then here I am going to increment counter plus plus, right? So this is, I've placed counter plus plus here to actually keep a track of how many times this particular loop is going to run, right? So let us see. So is your age, so it is, the compiler is going to check, is your age less than 30, right? Is it, if it is less than 30, yes, it is less than 30, so it will enter the loop, right? So if it enters the loop, then it is going to increment your age. So what happens now, age plus plus would actually mean your age will increment to 21, right? So when that happens, right, when that happens, so after that, so that one has been added to your age. So what will happen now is that it is going to increment counter as well, because in the first increment, we have incremental counter as well, right? Now your age is 21, right? Now your age is 21. Now, so again, what will happen? It will, the loop will again increment to another in the next iteration, right? So now it is going to check if your age is less than 30. So it sees, is 21 less than 30? Yes, it is less than 30. Then it will increment age plus plus. So what is it going to do? It will change or add 1 to your age, right? And then following that, it will increment your counter, denoting that you are in the next iteration. Alright. Likewise, it is going to continue. It is going to continue and continue till let's say it's going to continue till 29. Right. So if it is 29, 9, right. So iteration is now 29, right? So let's see if your age is now 29. So if it will check. While your age is less than 30, is 29 less than 30? Yes, it is less than 30. So it will enter the while loop and then execute. So what will it do now? It will increment it to 30, right? And then it will again increment your counter to 10. Right? So when that happens, right, now your age will become 30, right? So again, the compiler will go and check to compare your age with that condition, right? Now your age is 30. Is it less than 30? What do you think, guys? Is your age less than 30 now? No, your age is actually equivalent to 30. So are we satisfying that condition there? No, we are not. So when we are not able to meet that condition, right, then your program will, then your loop will stop, and the compiler will move on to the next lines, right? It will move on to here. Let's say it will move on to there. Right? So are you able to understand what I actually tried to explain here? How the while loop actually works, right? Yes. Okay. So now, so what actually happens is that very similarly, So very similarly, your do while loop will also run. Very similarly. So let me just explain to you, right? How your do while runs. So what actually happened is we have do, let's say, h plus plus, and then we have counter plus plus, and then we're going to say while your age is less than 30. And so if that is the case, I will, let's say, set your age to 28, and then I'll set this to 0. Right? So I have restructured this piece of example into, what do you call this, for do while loop, right? So what is the difference between a while loop and do while loop is that for a while loop to run, first you meet the condition, then you can actually enter the loop. That is how it actually works. Okay? First you must actually enter, or first you must meet the condition, then you can enter the piece of code or loop. Right? But if you see the do while loop, the condition is at the bottom of the loop, right? So what it happens, the user will get a minimum of one chance, or the program will get, compiler will get a minimum of one chance to actually enter the loop, right? It will get a one chance to actually enter the loop, right? Before you can check with the condition, right? For example, if I have to say, your age is 30, right? So what will it actually do? Right? What are you actually going to do? The compiler now will enter the do while loop, right? So it is going to enter, and it is going to increment your age to 31. So age plus plus would mean 31 there, right? Then it is going to increment your counter 1, right? And then is going to go to your while loop, and it's going to check, right? Is your age less than 30? No, it is not. So the condition is not met. So the compiler will not enter the loop again in the second iteration. It is going to carry on from there. Right? Are you able to understand what I am actually trying to say? For example, let's say I put your age to be 28 here, right? And then I am saying 0. So at first iteration I am not going to actually compare, right? I am going to straight away enter the do while loop. So first I am going to increment. So increment, I'm going to say it is 29 now, and then I'm going to increment this 1, right? And then I'm going to check with the condition, is it less than 30? So is it less than 30 at the moment? Yes, it is less than 30, right? So if it is meeting the condition, then the compiler will again enter the do while loop. So it will go for the second iteration. And in the second iteration, it is going to increment your age to 30, right? And then it is going to increment your counter to 2, right? And then it's going to check age plus plus, then it's going to check if it is meeting the condition. Is it meeting the condition now? Is it meeting the condition? Okay, so it is not meeting the condition, right? So 30 is, your age is not less than 30, but it is equivalent to 30. So your condition is not met, the compiler will leave the loop and move on to the next line, right? That is how your do while loop actually works, right? So everybody is clear with that? Yes? No? Anyone? Very clear or still confused? Anyone is still confused? No? Okay. So let us move on to the next one, the for loop, right? So I have actually discussed the do while loop here. So I'm going to check on with the for loop, right? The for loop is very much simple. How you can actually differentiate a for loop with a while and do while loop is that you can actually know the number of times. You can actually specify the exact number of times that you want your for loop to run, right? Because of the condition. If you see, for int I is equals to 5, I is less than equals to 10, and I plus plus, right? So you can actually specify. Uh, you can actually specify whether what do you call this? How many times that loop should run. In this case, you can because you are providing the boundary for your execution, right? If your I is equals to 5 and your I is less than 10, right, then only you can actually enter your loop can actually run. Right? So main thing there is that you have to know how you are going to provide your condition, the initialization part in I is equals um, int I is equals to 5, and then the loop what do you call this condition for the loop is executed while the condition is true, right? Again, if you are meeting that condition, then the loop will go on. If the moment you are not meeting the condition, the loop will stop, right? So that is very much simple there, right? And so that is that. Okay. Right, so let's have a look at this piece of code. By the way, Walter, can I have your ID number, please? For attendance purpose. Okay, so let us continue while he's giving me the ID. If you see string name and then int grade, then it says see out student's name stopped, right? So you have, so it says see in student's name and then Q to stop, right? So you are going to read, right? So let's say C in name. So whatever the student is providing as an input, you will read that, right? Now after that, it says we have a while loop, right? If there is a condition, right? Your name is not equals to Q. So the moment you that person press Q for the input is going to stop, right? So if let's say if you press your name there, so it's going to check your name against if it is equals to Q. So it's not equal. So it's going to see out enter grade, and then it's going to read your grade. So while your grade is greater than 0, right, you will have the following calculation here. Sum is equals to sum plus grade, and then C out, enter grade, and then C in grade. Right, so it's reading actually how many? 2 grades, right? And then you can, if you see, so that loop will actually keep on running if your grade is greater than 0, greater than equals to 0. For let's say if you press 0 for instance, then it will come out of that while loop for the grades, and then it is going to continue further, and it's going to say cout name and then sum, and then cout student name q2 read. So again it is going to continue with reading the student name, right? So I would suggest that you have a look at that piece of code using your dev C++ program, right? Please do that. Right, so we are almost towards the end of our session, and you for that piece of code, code walkthrough, you can actually, let's say what, run. I would suggest that you run it on your piece of on your dev C++ and just play around with it to see how things are organized there, how the conditions are placed, and how the compiler is actually checking to see that whether that condition is being met or not, right? So we are done with pretty much with our discussion here. Does anyone have any question? Yes, anybody has any question so far? So I suppose I was quite clear while explaining. You guys were able to understand? Sure? Okay. So, if you do have any questions that you want me, that you think I should help you with, or you need explanation with, then you can actually note down my ID, right? S111-08507, right? That is my student ID. You can actually drop an email if you have any questions that you think I should help you out with, right? So before we sum up, are you sure you don't have anything you want me to help you with? The loop. Yes. Which loop are you talking about, Caroline? The while loop. Okay. So you're still not able to understand the while loop, is it? Okay, okay. So let me go back to your while loop and see. Okay. So if you look at this page, the while statement, right? If you see the while statement, what actually happens here is that there is a condition, right? So if you look at what the example that I actually gave you, the age example, right? Were you able to grasp that example very well? Yes. So it's like very much similar to, no, not very much. It's exactly how it's working here, right? So best thing is that you will have some variable with you, right? And then for that variable, you will have a boundary that you need to meet, right? So if that particular variable is actually not meeting or is within that boundary, then your while loop will keep on running. That's the idea there. So if as long as you're within the boundary, you are eligible to be within the loop. Right? As soon as you exceed the boundary, you do not meet the boundary, then you will have to move out of that while loop. That is how exactly it's going to go. You getting what I'm saying? Right? For example, if you are a student of USP and you have a student ID, that then only you will have access to Moodle and Moodle, your student account and your source account, right? Am I right? Only if you are student. Yes. So if you are not a student, then obviously you will not have access to any of those things. So that is what is actually happening here. Let's say, for example, so if I put it in a while statement, right? So I would say, let's see, uh, let's say, um, say while for student, right? So why, okay, now int value is equals to, let's say, string student is equals to, let's say, oh no, no, no. Okay, string value is equals to, let's say, student, right? So imagine that you are a student at USB, right? So while no, that would be wrong. That would be wrong. So again, say int age is equals to 0. I think I do. Okay, so I don't think I have enough time to explain the example, show you the example at the moment, but that's the basic idea. There is this one condition, and then you have to meet that condition so that you can access the values in the within that loop. For example, if you are a student, right? If you are not a student, if your age, let's say, let's get back to that example, right? If your age, let's say, is at the moment 28, right? And that boundary should be 30. So if you are less than 30, then you can enter the while loop, right? Then you have to check. While your age is less than 30, yes, it is less than 30, then you can enter the while loop, and then you can, let's say, see out age, or maybe you can increment age, or you can do whatever you like within that while loop, right? And then at the end you would increment that age just to see if that is meeting it, that condition is being met in the next iteration, right? So if you increment 28, it will become 29, right? So we'll finish with that iteration. We'll again enter the iteration. We'll again check with the condition. So you check, is 29 equals to 30 or less than 30? Yes, it is still less than 30. So you will again enter the while loop, right? And then at the end you will again increment your age, right? And then you will and then you will again check the condition, right? So in each iteration you have to first check the condition, then if you are meeting the condition, then you will enter the value. I hope I was clear this time. Okay, so if you're not able to grasp that idea, I would suggest you go and have a look at one or two videos on YouTube on loops, maybe on do while loops or while loops. Maybe that can help. And if you still you're not able to understand, then please let me know. I provide you with the email, right? I will try and help you out in any way I can. Okay. So with this, we'll end the session here. I wish you all the best for your break and your MST, right? And I hope to see you again in week 8. All well and good. Okay, right? So have a good day and some break. Okay. Goodbye.